to Aware. We are dedicated to communicating information that inspires your positive growth and change. Are you interested in a peaceful planet? Are you interested in optimal health? Are you living with purpose? Are you enjoying your life? We realize each person can make a difference, and our mission is to empower your awareness. The choices that you make in every moment shape your life, and we encourage you to realize that you have your own answers and to always listen to your own truth. We invite you to stay aware. Hello and welcome to The Aware Show. I am so happy to be here with you. It's truly a joy. It's such a blessing to be here with everyone because it's the new year, it's new energy. I don't know if you've recognized it or not, but every astrologer I've interviewed has said this year is really a powerful year for light workers. That's you. You're listening. You're most likely one of those who has a torch to bear and has a message to bring to the world. And it is your time truly for this message to come through. And I just want you to feel that for a second. Just experience that energy. It's lighter. It's more open. There's a flow. There's been a lot of completion of things that happened at the end of last year and openings for things to happen this year. Even just whether or not you believe in astrology or not, tune into that energy in yourself and see if that opens up for you a little bit more. I did a visualization with my mastermind group this week on this visual of a superhighway. And because we all have multiple projects going on at all times, that's kind of the way we are these days. I imagined each lane of the highway as each one of the projects that you have going on, and to look at the energy and clear the energy moving forward. And some of them actually might even have blocks, and you will look at that as information and maybe stop putting your energy towards that and put it more towards the ones that are moving forward. Because we all have multiple projects because we're all such creative people. Doesn't it make sense to have each one of the highway lanes clear that energy for you and really supercharge that energy with the divine grace that's always present in our lives? So enjoy that little visualization while you go throughout your day. And now we get to bring awareness to something that all of us have. All of us have this absolutely beautiful power to voice who we are, what we want in the world, what those intentions are, even to bring it through song. Do you ever sing your words as you're setting intentions or driving down the highway and you just say, I really want this, or you just bring song into your life? Well, that times a gazillion is what the Brothers Koren do. They bring your voice to and your intention to life and really bring it into the world. And they are joining us today. And I'm so excited about this because not only are these two brothers that I absolutely love and have always had a very special place in my heart for, but they have had phenomenal careers, and which is so fascinating. They're transformational voice leaders, music mentors, and they're artists. I love artists because they really want to hear the world's song one voice at a time. Your voice is that one voice at a time. They started off their career performing to millions of people. They toured with Pink and Coldplay and Rod Stewart. I mean, these are real celebs. They are now focusing on something that is so near and dear to their heart, fostering first-time talent and reclaiming voices of all walks of life. And that's not just those that want to go into the music industry, those of us that have voices that want to tap into those voices, and especially those of us that thought that we couldn't. And so I'm so excited to welcome both of you. Thank you so much for being with me, journeymen.
Lisa, we love you. Thank you so much for having us.
Such a pleasure to be here with you.
Absolutely. I love watching your journeys unfold. And I was wondering if you could share that story a little bit about the beginning of when you were touring and going through all that. And what was that decision like to really say, wait, are we really serving the greater whole? Where is the where is the individual in all of this? Do
Mhm.
you mind sharing a little of that?
Yeah. I like how you started this interview by looking at the lanes on a highway of all these projects, and some might have blocks or have slowed down, and some are moving forward. And it felt a lot like that. We were taking a break from touring as much as we had been loving living into this teenage dream of ours. Isaac and I both started singing together as brothers. Actually, later when we were teenagers, we both got into music separately. And it wasn't until we met up in New York, we followed our beautiful mother, who had what we call a fabulous midlife crisis. She was in the original touring cast of Hair and had this gut feeling to move from Australia and leave her 3 young children and follow this gut feeling to what we now know, reclaim her own voice. And we had met up in New York and we harmonized for the first time.
Wow.
And Isaac and I realized we couldn't not do it. There was something greater than 2 voices, which we'll talk about later. But fast forward 15 years and we were taking a break from touring. We'd had all this success. We're on Interscope. We'd had success in Australia and New Zealand and been touring with Coldplay and Pink and living out a lot of our dream. But we had this break from the touring and we suddenly had this really strong shared gut feeling to go to LA and help foster and nurture other voices. We thought it was in the music business. We thought it would be with artists. And we come out to LA and we put together a little team and we start doing it. And a couple months in, quite literally the same day, Isaac and I looked at each other and went, this is it. This isn't it. Like it's not meant to be like
there
this.
was a block on the highway or a sense of dissonance with, our intention and our souls. Our souls weren't satisfied at a deep level. We weren't aligned with the conversations we were having, the methodologies we were using, the kind of the social gathering around songwriting just wasn't sitting well with either of us. But we looked at each other and we said, is this working for you? And we were both like, no. And then we kind of really got sweaty. We were like, well, we've moved our young families out from New York to LA to do this. If it's not this, then what is it? And it was
like
a vulnerable moment.
Yeah. It was a universe intervention.
Wow.
We highly recommend to everyone listening that to get back in touch with the power of requesting by saying, hey, there's a breakdown here. What might be possible now? Because in that space, sometimes answers flow in. And for us, the next morning, we had this idea come to us, which was, what if we became someone's brothers? And from inception, with their permission, what if we put together like a journey over multiple months for someone to get to know themselves using music, song, and voice as a medium? And what if this was not just for an artist, but what if this was for anyone from anywhere? And that was a question that was easy for me to ask. I'd been a coach since I was a kid, and Isaac had been a mentor to a lot of people. So we kind of,
band, we always were so overly, in a way, to many artists, interested and curious in our audience members. We always felt like they were our family and we wanted to hear about them. And when kind of almost deflecting compliments or questions to kind of, no, but actually, what about your voice?
We were always fascinated by
and
people.
Will you sing with us? We were always getting our audiences to sing with us. So this was always something that was inherent in us. And then
the light bulbs went off and we're like, what if we made an offer? What if we took someone on an experience over months? So we put it together. Of course, as the universe does, someone reached out to us and said, do you ever work with a first-time artist who's been dreaming of trying?
Just 2 weeks later.
We're like, actually. So we quickly put it together. We wrote it down. And they came out to LA. The rest is history. And the doors, it wasn't more than a year till we were sitting in Santa Barbara at an event with Jack Canfield, of all people. And we had sort of quite quickly come into the self-development space for it, because we'd asked ourselves about 6 months before, who do we know in the transformational world? Because we feel like what we're doing is for anyone. In fact, maybe particularly someone who's been terrified or really lived with a lot of voice trauma, a lot of inhibition, a lot of too much scared feeling to maybe raise their voice enough and long enough to get past that. Is it good enough? Is it perfect enough to lean in their later years in life too? So we realized that this work was meant for everyone that had a heart and a voice that went unvoiced.
And we find that almost 3/4 of the people we meet have some kind of fear of public speaking or singing in public, glossophobia as it's known. It's really rampant. and
You
so
can see it show
Yeah.
up in people's voices. Sometimes people have very timid voices or quiet or high pitched, like um still in their infancy type of voices.
yeah,
And it really is very telling when I'm very sensitive to voice as well, and just the speaking voice. And it tells so much. There's like a blueprint there of your personality in your voice.
Oh yeah.
so well said.
Isn't that interesting? Now, so when you go and you find people, or people find you, really,
Yeah,
what is it they're looking to do, and how do you
Mm.
see and transform that with their voice? I mean, you
I
can
love.
transform someone's life through their voice, right?
Mm.
They can, yeah. And I
Mm.
love your questions, by the way, and your voice.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I think people generally are looking to connect, whether it's conscious or not. They're looking to connect to a sense of being at home
Mm.
in
Themselves.
in themselves, and then that shows up in their voice. And I feel like the voice is, evolutionarily speaking, such an ancient pathway for us in the brain and in our biology, as you know, complex vocal learners. All of the apes and the primates, all of our ancestors had this ability to voice themselves, to mimic, to vibrate, to align with,
Mhm.
and we are complex social beings. So the voice happens to be one of our most important elements of our influence and activity behavior.
Mm.
And so it's, on one side it's our power, but it's also our vulnerability because of our emotional state, and because we tend towards comparison in this world that we've created. There's a complex relationship there, because on one level the voice is incomparable. Every single human voice is a unique, frequency. It's distinct. We can tell each other apart by the tone of our voice, and yet we're looking to also always fit in and belong and sound good, or sound pretty, or sound, whatever.
On
That is, it's a
pitch,
comparative
yeah.
thing.
course.
So we want to compare the voice, but we can never do it. And so to acknowledge that our voice is one of a kind can actually be very confronting and
time.
awkward for each human to
Big
kind of
time.
come to terms with their voice.
Yeah, and that goes for Lisa. That goes for people that have, maybe sung in their life. Maybe they're in a choir. Maybe they did it in college and then hung it up to get a real job. Maybe they've always done it. But it also goes and rings true for the I can't singer, or the person that's ruled themselves out. Because from moment one, when we wake up in the morning to when we go to bed at night, our voice is constantly with us. And it's not just in the sound we make. It's not just how we sound ourselves out in the workplace and with our family and our life. It's the way in which we listen. It's the way in which we experience receptively the day we're having. And the way in which we show up is that. It's also at the core of someone's mental health and emotional health. Someone who has been going through disorder or dysfunction, something I know very well, going through mental illness myself, is almost certainly in some capacity disassociated from what we call the whole body instrument, that a part of them has been scared out of their body, and often aren't rooted and embodied in the instrument, the voice that they've been given. And one of the keys to mental health, or the journey from mental ill health to mental health, is so often about re-embodiment, right? And about connecting back home to the voice is a big, beautiful pathway to that.
Yeah,
No,
we
I've
found
never
that. Go
thought
ahead.
that you could really that you could find the empowerment of your body, and through very scary times of anxiety or depression, that can be healed through finding a voice.
Absolutely.
How does that work?
Carefully and gently, and over the course of a gathering of experiences that often we find that most of us have had really just unpleasant experiences, or we've been forced to be in an experience of the voice that's competitive and comparative, like Isaac said. So we work on, how do I sound, make sure I sound good, look good, I'm prepared, I'm excellent. And we find a lot of people are exhausted by that. We also find that a lot of people just want to return home to their body and exhale and just feel, a little bit of ease again.
Harmony. Yeah. We also find that we call them the small voices, but it's that dissonant or negative self-talk, the alarms, the sensations, if it's a mental disorder, then often those negative voices that we hear or that we experience in our biology sometimes are super ingrained and hard to avoid, and it's hard to kind of find the clarity or the harmony. But what we find is that these small voices, around the voice, often are like, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy.
Internal voices.
Internal voices. It's got to be perfect. I'm unsafe. I'm too much. My voice isn't pretty enough. All of these kind of things around the voice, we call them the small voices. But the small voices show up in around anything in our lives. Often, they're protective mechanism. And so what we find is we call it voice trauma. Really, it's when those negative voices or small voices become the loudest part of our choir, and so that big voice that Thorald was talking about, when we feel at home, when we feel at ease, that big voice is quiet and soft and patient and always there for us if we want to tune into it and align to it.
You can find comfort in your own voice. Yes, sometimes I hear people that have a voice that still sounds like they're a little girl or a little boy, and that is, again, stopped by trauma at that age. And there's either a trauma that happens around that age, or there's not allowing your voice to be heard. That's a huge thing with women around the world. I coach women on their story, and that is exactly what I hear again and again, is that I'm afraid to say something in fear of getting, being in danger. Sometimes using your voice puts them in danger.
So true.
And unwarranted not wanted attention. Some of the other main small voices that we've discovered over working with thousands of people around voice, of course, this goes beyond the singing voice, just voice in general, is I'm not safe. It's unsafe. I'm too much. Like, I got attention I didn't want when I was my full self. So we find that a lot of people tend to dim back or dim down. Of course, no one wants to feel dimmed for long enough, right? We want to find that part. So these
got to be perfect.
It's got to be perfect.
We want to apply this perfection to our voice, and yet the voice is vulnerable, is a reflection of our imperfections sometimes. And it's hard for us to accept certain things about our voice that is always changing.
I mean, we've learned such a valuable thing here. I mean, when I see you two fully belt sounds and words, your whole body gets involved. I mean, it is a full body instrument. The voice isn't just located in the throat. It's mental, and it's the full lung and the full involvement and the full engagement of the body and the breath. And it is fascinating when you really look at that, because it involves and engages all of these things that you're talking about, and it can unleash all sorts of insecurities. But let's talk about that for a second, about the voice and the harmonizing and what that really means in terms of harmonizing with our world. When I watch you two harmonize, I had the pleasure of sitting in one of the, it was like a hotel room, after party type of thing. And Isaac, you were sitting on one side, Thorald, you were sitting on the other. And to see that arc actually form along the ceiling of the hotel room was fascinating to me. It was like a lightning, just kind of like bolt. And I was just audibly and noticeably shocked by that, because there's such a harmony that happens between you two. So how can that happen in our world when we use our voices?
What a great question.
I love how you're leaning into, we were saying today, in an event we do once a month called The Choir, we were saying, listen in to the space between the harmony, the note you're singing with us. Listen to the entity the resonant entity between two notes. And that's exactly, because you're so beautiful and sensitive to sound, that's exactly what's happening, whether we've noticed it or not. And we see harmony as such a wide conversation. The first and the simplest way to say, how do we be in harmony? Well, first, harmony is defined as something, two notes that are pleasing. Of course, it's such an outdated definition, because harmony does include working with dissonance, which means we know this if we've been on a self-development journey, that we have to find a way to wrap our arms around uncomfortable feeling. We have to find a way to move toward unexpressed emotion that got bottled up. We know that the best way into our next emergent health is being a little uncomfortable. So we understand that immediately, that dissonance is part of nature. And so the first step to a harmonious life to us is to be willing to look inward and to harmonize first with self. And for anyone out there that's experiencing any dissonance or dis-ease with their mental, emotional health, physical health, can we come home to our body as it is first? Can we invite ourselves in this moment? Can we invite ourselves to be back home behind our face and resting back into our spine and falling back down into our pelvic floor and back into our beautiful bellies to inhale, exhale? And can we begin to find anything pleasing about who we are at home in our body? And can we meet ourselves as we are today? And that begins the entry point to being interested in reharmonizing self, right? To be interested in our voice.
It takes a lot of compassion to harmonize or form a new loving relationship with those dissonances or small voices or whatever. The negative self-talk, when we go inside, often we feel our survival system firing, and all, when we try and meditate, sometimes it can be tumultuous. And can we first, like Thorald said, find some acceptance and surrender rather than resistance? Because when we resist that, dissonance that can and does occur, then it just adds more dissonance.
We resist the resistance.
So, the idea is to kind of be compassionate, to be willing to feel it all, to be okay, even being not okay, so to speak. And that kind of is that first step towards finding harmony with self, is an acceptance and a behavioral shift of including the dissonance in the harmony, right? So never assuming that there'll ever be a moment where, or never expecting the dissonance to go, but to kind of include it as a paradox in a way, a living paradox.
To embrace it.
Yeah.
Now, you help people with this through courses, through classes. This is your thing. This is your thing. This is what you do. Tell me a little bit about how you work with people and what types of people even come to you. Are there those that are terrified or that don't even know that this is something, or is it like click for them?
It's both. I think it's both. And when someone recognizes that, wow, I have really been either shut down in my voice, or I've not fully ever supported my brilliance, my greatness. I've never stepped in and let my voice come out in its full potential. No one's ever supported the space for that, or it got written off, or I came from a family of people like, we don't sing in this family, we don't raise our voice in this family. So we're working with someone to reclaim their inherent power and value in their voice, or we're working with someone who's left their music and their voice to the wayside. And it's just time, because they know that in the reclamation of who they are through the medium of music, song, and voice, that they're worth it. And now's the time again. And that this shows up everywhere. And so we do sometimes also work with someone who's just truly surprised they even want to work with us, but they have this true sense that if they use this medium, that they won't be left the same in the greatest way. And so we've worked with a lot of people that come to us afterwards, after a course or a program, and say, I had no idea we were going to go this deep. I also, this has opened me in ways that other programs just couldn't get to. And we say, well, it's not us, it's music and it's voice. It's the ancient biological birthright of sound that's doing the work you're opening to.
I said earlier that I love artists, and I truly do, because artists, they don't have to be professional, but we all have an artist inside of us. And the artist archetype has no choice but to have this expressed. It's just, you can't not. And it's, the whole term of the starving artist is because you are happiest when you're expressing yourself. And we have a lot of our wonderful community in Los Angeles are wonderful actors and actresses and singers and people that have that need to want to express themselves and feel happiest when they are. And maybe they don't know it's through voice. Maybe they're an actor or, doing something on the voice or broadcasting side, but they don't know that they actually can find their voice through song. How do you get somebody in that safe space? How do you start? Because I know people are terrified. Yeah.
Well, I think many people are from petrified to terrified to just scared-sided, nerve-sided, a combination of nervous and excited. But a safe space for us is, there's actually 5 ways of being that we like to invite people into to define or to set the container of safety around a voice. And first we have to give it to ourselves. But then once we're giving it to ourselves, then it happens that we can offer it to others. In fact, it's quite easy to offer it to others. Offering it to ourselves is the big step. So these 5 ways of being, in no particular order, is, can you be generous with the sound, your sound? Can you be generous? And practically that means, can you find in each moment one thing you like, love, or accept? If you're in the terrified, negative relationship with your voice, can you just accept one thing about what's occurring?
Generous with the sound too, right?
With the sound, particularly because people don't like the sound often of their own voice, particularly when it's recorded and they're hearing it back.
And speaking to actors, we've had the beautiful pleasure working with quite a few actors, and often a lot of actors, musical theater people have been trained in performance first, right? So performance as the priority, and working with us, we demote that at least one step. Sometimes you can't move it below second with an actor or a performing artist because it won't move. It's been too many years. But can we put experience seeking above performance, which is saying, can I seek out something over the unknowable creative horizon in myself that's of value? And can I free myself from not having to sound good and look good straight away?
Very Stanislavski, the kind of method acting or the experience leaning, experiential.
I'm going to put you on the spot here then, Thorald. Could you give us an example of what it would be like right now to generously hear your voice?
Okay. Well, I'm going to give myself the generosity. Let's see. Okay. I love that you put me on the spot.
I did. I
How about this? I've been looking for gold while sitting on diamonds. I've been stalling my way to love for all these years. I thought on all there was and all that could have been, but now all I want to do is be here with you.
Oh my God, that's so beautiful. You're so accessible. Your voice is so accessible to you. That is precious. And I love that you just, without vocal warm up, and we've been talking for 20, 30 minutes, and you weren't in there doing ahs and voices and riffs and things like that.
Well,
it just became
our mother would love, it'd be so fun if she was here, because she is a coach of our work, and she kind of gets mad at us because she was like, how do you know what it's like? Because you've both always had a voice. You've always had a beautiful voice. How the F do you know? Who do you think you are to say you can understand what it's like to suffer with voice trauma? Because she did. She left hair because she was afraid she wasn't good enough.
Mm-hmm.
She walked away from her final audition when she came
Yeah.
back to it. But, you know,
And she's been in the process of reclaiming her voice, which is sort of like at the core of maybe why we do this too. It's
Yeah.
been so beautiful to watch. And
but
now,
yeah,
even now, huh?
no matter
Yeah.
what your voice
Yes.
sounds like, you know, if your voice isn't nearly as so quote unquote pretty as Thorold's, you can still have an experience that's just as yummy for yourself and others, right?
Yes.
It's not about how pretty it is. It's about how deeply can you feel it in each moment.
Well, I hope what you felt and thank you for that request. There's nothing like a good request. I hope what you felt is me feeling an excerpt of a song I wrote many years ago. We released as the Kin together. That I could also now stop and I could try to nail a version and perform an excerpt of a song. And there's a big distinction there between me wanting to sound good and look good and perform a song, and me wanting to allow a song to hit me, touch me, tear me open and let you witness it. And a lot of our work, and full circle to the actor comment, is really helping open to that, taking that risk. And that goes for a 65-year-old grandmother who's finally stepping in, who we get to work with, absolutely, to a math teacher, to an actor. That there's always a part of us that has been waiting to be felt. And music and song and voice gives us access to that, to harmonize with that.
Well, we want to come back to your question, which is about safety. And so the first way of being is generous. Can you be generous? Can you find one thing you like, love, or accept?
Yes.
Second way is curious. Can you be curious about the experience? Can you be asking, questions like, what if? Play is the state that we want to get to. We want to feel free in our voice. That's what we're really longing for, perhaps, is freedom.
Okay, one more request then within that. I'm gonna each one of your 5. I'm gonna have if you don't mind. Just doing this on the fly here. So in that request of that, that everyone knows the song "Let It Be," right? And it was so beautifully written in a key, I guess, that is so easy to sing for everyone, right? It's not a super high reach or low, right?
Yeah.
So along those lines, could we sing a few of those? And I'm inviting everyone listening, just let it be. Let your voice be. What do you suggest in fulfilling this?
Let it be. Where's that key?
It's right here, I'm playing it.
Well, I found myself in times of trouble. Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom. Let it be. Let's get to the chorus. Let it be. Let it be. Let it be. Oh, let it be. Speaking words of wisdom. Let it be. Let it be. Let it be. Let it be. Oh, let it be. Speaking words of wisdom, let it be.
So in this moment, can you just let yourself be curious and follow any melody that comes to you? You could use the word
kind of make up your own melody in a way, right? Just using that word, that phrase, let it be. Can you be curious what comes out if you just trust the first creative impulse? Let it be.
Will be your background singers.
Let it be. Let it be.
Yeah.
Let it be. Let it be. That was terrifying. I've never done that before.
You sounded beautiful.
Yes, thank you.
You sound beautiful.
It's just the extension of the speaking voice. And I hope that everyone listening did that too, just played along, because it's freeing when you allow your voice to be, just to let it come out.
To be. It's also we love that tone. We got to make this beautiful body of work around reharmonizing the body in the sound healing world with our friend Eileen McCusick. It's called Sing the Body Electric. And what we discovered is when you treat your whole body as a sandbox, exploring what's possible, we become extremely curious. And the active way of being around your voice can be yes anding yourself. Like, that felt good. What if I now try this? Where there's only sandbox. There's no mistakes.
Always interested.
That's fascinating. Yeah, she's a great tuning artist too. I mean, she really knows how to tune to the voice. So that's beautiful. All right. Well, what's number 3? What are we going to play with?
Next is willing over willfulness. It's perhaps, without gender, but more of a feminine principle, more of a yin than a yang. But just a willingness to the moment, to a willingness to give it a go, instead of a resistance or a willfulness. I'm going to sing that top note, and I'm going to get there. It's more just like, I'm going to fall into it. I'm
going to let it in, and I'm going to I'm going to meet my voice as it is today and listen into what wants to be sounded. See, that's all willingness language. Willful is, let me work on this song so I get better. See, that's all willful. That's all willful language. And a lot of us don't realize in the performing arts, entertainment world, or any field, we don't realize we're living a willful life. How many of us are living a willful life? There's a place and a time for that, right? To get something done by a due date, to get something done with a grade good enough or better. That doesn't belong in music, song, voice like the entertainment world has done to it. And I'm happy to stand by that one. It doesn't belong. The greatest artists of all time didn't come from a willful place. They came from a willing place. And everyone has that as an invitation in their own lives and own voices to play with.
Yeah, it kind of speaks to that we are birthing from within. We're birthing ourselves, our voice, our song. It's all coming from within. So, to be willing to allow it out, it's an allowance, a permission.
So an example of that maybe would be, you have a beautiful song called Everything Changes. And it's kind of like about that. It's about being willing to allow change to happen. And when you allow that change to happen, it starts to fly, it starts to move, it starts to morph into what it's meant to be and find itself, right?
It does. Are you about to ask us to sing an
I would love it.
that?
I love this song. This is one of my favorite songs about change.
How about we'll do a verse into a chorus and
we'll give you an excerpt.
Along. Okay.
All right. I have to say yes.
Time moves slowly. I watching my feet as I'm falling into the moment. I burn like quickening. You're playing my heart to the pulsing generation. Oh, when the ground is shaking and nothing is steadfast, and it's like you couldn't rely on love to keep you falling in so fast. When everything's changing, I wanna stay close. When everything's changing, I wanna cry out. Everything's changing.
Wherever you are right now listening, sing after me. Let's hearken together. Raise your voice in song. Here we go.
Everything's changing.
see why this is one of my favorite songs. It's so beautiful. You know, it's just the topic of everything's changing. I want to stay close. I want to hold on, but I have to let go. And you know, that your song and Stevie Nicks' Landslide, those get me every time because it's about change and it's inevitable. It's inevitable. Of those things that, like, I'm specifically talking about my daughter. It's like when you have a child and it changes. And I know that you are both familiar with that. And I know that you've both been through journeys with changing childhoods and with children changing. And Thorald went through one of the most difficult changes that a child could do would be transitioning out of this life at such a very, very young age. And your little Jack, you mentioned, was such a teacher for you.
Oh yeah.
What an experience.
Yeah. I had Jack, my son, was born and was here with us for 14 months, passed away in 2020. And he lived, gosh, that 14 months, the impact he made for himself, I'm sure, and on those around him that got to come around him as a campfire. And we don't, you know, life is not measured in days and weeks and months. It's measured in moments, you know, that we let ourselves experience. I think that, I think one of the most fascinating parts of Jack is that he was born with under a birth accident. He was born with global brain damage, a really severe case. And he had a voice. Like he quite literally had only voice. Couldn't swallow. G-tube.
He helped us write a song.
He could make this tone when he was relaxed. When he was upset, he was just kind of upset. But when he was relaxed, he would purr. That's what he would do. He would tone. It's pretty wild, but it's the truth. And yeah, he would sit with us as we wrote song, and he would tune into the key if he was feeling like very awake. And it was repeated. This wasn't just one time. It was a repeated thing. Of course, neurologists would say, well, that's not possible. Well, a lot of them would. But they weren't there for those 14 months. They weren't there.
It's just a frequency that he was able to tune into because he was all frequency and he was all energy.
He was all being, and he was tethered to this very brain injured body for a period of time. But he was 100% being. He was not missing. And thanks for bringing him up. Thanks for bringing him up.
Well, yes. I mean, it just shows that you can, the survival of the human spirit, the ability for us as a human spirit to be able to change and to transition and to move and to go through life's incredible challenges. You are here today singing and teaching people to have their voice. And you've both been through your shares of tragedy and both been through your ups and downs in life. And that really is what life gives you. And, you know, earlier I was mentioning, you know, I liked last year, the end of everything bad. It's not like this is all better. No, it's like things are still going to continue to happen. There's still wars, there's still conflicts. And it's how do we cope with that and use our voice in the meantime in order to strengthen our inner being and to thrive through life.
Yeah. And in so many ways, Lisa, it's when it comes to the voice and whole body instrument and reharmonizing as best we can in times of discord, it's to come home to self and then to lean in to the changing tides. And those two things are voice principles, really.
Yeah, I mean, harmony is always there for us to tune into. So is dissonance. And we get to choose. We really do get to choose what we focus our intention on. And for some of us, there is that impulsive and compulsive, you know, internal behavior that is a little tricky. But for many of us, and perhaps most of us, we do get to choose. We do get to choose harmony. And when we choose it, and when we lean into it, like Thorald just said, it flourishes and it regenerates and recreates itself and reflects in our life. And we get to, you know, magnetize what we want by leaning into harmony and finding harmonic relationships around us. And, you know, harmony requires us to be fully standing in our gravity. And so same with the other person, so that there's this harmonic distance We can't be in the same place, but we can hold our space. We can hold a harmonic space between us.
And the most beautiful harmonies require not just distance or space between the notes, but also difference. That the differences, and of course we can see this at the core of all, relations work, is how can we stand and see perspective, even in times of where it feels almost impossible, because that is honoring distance and difference. And that, when you look at the harmonic spectrum and you look at music and the frequency of music, that's what it's doing. It's honoring distance and difference.
Oh.
You come together to create something, that arc you talked about, a entity in right relations between the nodes.
Oh,
Happens.
Interesting, right? That's why it has that. And then also you said that it's a whole body instrument, so we do the same thing. Fascinating. Isaac, I wanted you to be able to finish 4 and 5, because there's
what Jack really teaches us 4, which is to be in awe. Can we stay in the gratitude of everything? And sometimes we need time to be grateful for the wounds and the conflict. But over time, we get perspective and we get to see, I understand now why this happened and what the value, where the gold was in the dirt, But yeah, staying in awe. When it comes around the voice, can you be in awe of the scientific fact, that your voice is unmistakable,
Unrepeatable, most likely.
incomparable?
Yeah.
your own personal blueprint, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And number 5, perhaps the scariest and most exciting at the same time, is, can you be daring? Can you dare to suck, we like to say? Can you dare to make a sound without expectation of the result?
And I'm feeling, just to be a bit sassy right now, it's 2024. It's the, Nike had it right. Just do it. Just do it, and lower the bloody benchmark a little, right? Be good enough. Because what's so fascinating, this touches in on, my deep fascination with behavioral work, what I came through mental illness, and we won't go into that now, but looking at what really held me back as an obsessive person was waiting to be ready for A+, whilst unconsciously and subconsciously being fine with F's everywhere. How on earth does that make reasonable sense? What makes way more reasonable sense is to start to be willing to look for C's, B minuses.
And let's look at the word C. It generally stands for satisfactory. And ultimately, if we can have satisfaction in our life, isn't that more than enough? To be satisfied in this human life that we each have been given, to find satiation, to find satisfaction.
Yeah, it's like a lot of us have been waiting.
There's gold in that.
A lot of us have been waiting for the someday when I have the time and then it will be a bestseller. That can often be such a trap, right? And yet, what about that 10 minutes?
What about now?
Tonight?
What about now?
What about that 5 minutes? Pretend you're going to the toilet and go create a song with a voice note. Write a page of this book idea you've had.
Yeah.
Do something little and be daring. Daring to suck and sucks and greatness are very close together, we've found.
That's fascinating. That you even learn that distinction about yourself, about wanting this, but being okay with this, and knowing that there's somewhere in between the two that just doesn't matter.
And if we just lean in and dare a little bit at a time, the breadcrumb trail opens. And daring is a beautiful, beautiful, wakeful, active meditation that
and
works.
like you said, Lisa, at the beginning, we're all creative in the sense that we've got so many laneways that we're driving down, right? And if we are looking for perfection before action in each of these laneways, then there's not going to be any motion. So can we just look for where there's resonance, look for where there's harmony in the moment, and move it along? Give it a little something.
I know that you have a TV show in one of your lanes that's coming down the pike, which is really a good supercharged lane. We supercharge that for you, and that's going to be fantastic. A reality show that really puts these tools into the hands of so many people. And you have a course that you're teaching that people can actually work with you, which is so exciting. Can you tell us a little bit about that as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, well, for all things we're up to, you can always go to Brothers Koren, KOREN.com. And we started our work in the Songwriter's Journey and other embodied voice programs. We have something coming up, though, on the Shift Network on harmony. For the first time, we have spent a couple months unpacking harmony to us. Of course, we've been singing together for 30 years.
Wow.
A lot of what we've been talking about today, much deeper into the dimensions, both literal harmony and metaphoric harmony, and how it shows up in life to live a harmonious life. And the course is coming out really soon. It's on February 21st. We kick off a 7-week course, and it's really accessible. So we hope that you follow any way that you can find it. Shift Network, it'll be a course by us on harmony.
And no singing experience required. We're going to dive into harmony with self, and then harmony with others, finding those harmonic relationships, practical guides, using the voice to key into those easeful, and nourishing relationships, and then
harmony with the universe.
Harmony with the universe. There's the natural laws of harmony are existing if we just know where to look and how to tune into them.
Yeah, harmony of consciousness. Being able to really look at our consciousness and how it comes home in our body in harmony.
When you harmonize with each other, what are you doing? Are you listening? Are you matching a vibration? How does that, it comes so naturally for you. I don't know if you've actually thought about this.
Yeah.
Well, harmony is defined as pleasing, right? And so we're literally leaning into what feels good. But like we said before, it's important that we're not singing the same note for it to be harmony. And so it's important that we hold that difference in order for it to be kind of spatially harmonic. And if we're singing the same note, if we collapse to the same note and just kind of follow each other around, then there won't be that tension or beauty of difference.
I want to make it practical. I want to say, practically speaking, maybe you're already a singer who's listening. I would say it's first honoring your note and really listening to your note, using your ear, attuning into the chords and finding your note. And then being interested in seeking harmony with another note is kind of a way of being too. It's like, okay, here's mine, and I'm going to do my best to
completely
stay. And then I'm going to look out and be curious as to who. It's like being on the dance floor. Like, okay, dance like no one's watching, and then okay, there's me. Okay, who else is in themselves? Oh, now let's make a chord here.
Well, let's give them an example. Let's give you a real-time example. So I'm going to
I was going to ask.
I'm going to hit a low note. Thorald's going to hit a higher note that's going to be pleasing for him,
but also far enough away so that we can invite anyone listening to find a note in between us
that's pleasing for you.
Yeah.
Okay,
here we go.
That includes you too. So I'm going to go. So now use your voice to find any note, and you can move it around until it feels good to you in relation to our notes.
Nice. Go, Lisa.
Yes, you hit the third, which is beautiful. The major
third. It is terrifying. I've never sung before on radio. Wow.
What a privilege it is to be the first to do it.
Oh my God.
So fun.
Those that can't see me, I'm bright red.
No,
so
perfect. You sounded beautiful. You did a little beautiful melody dance as well.
It's really beautiful because you present these pieces and then I just danced in between like a wave. And It didn't maybe sound that way, but it sounded that way to me. That was the goal.
Yes, and it was
Yes.
That was
gorgeous.
fun.
It was
That
part
was-
of a. It was
That
part
was
of a
very daring
greater-
of you.
It was. It's part of a greater whole being held in container
Yeah.
with other notes, seeking pleasure. And if this calls you and you go deeper with us, we're hoping that you can discover that every note in the harmonic spectrum can be harmonious, even the rubbing notes. In fact, a great example is
the cracking
two
notes that I
notes.
had.
Oh, not cracking, more just two notes rubbing together. In fact, we saw this as Jaws, right?
Does
Jaws.
someone, does any, how do these, ask yourself, how do these notes together feel or sound to you?
And of course, it was the theme of Jaws right now, like I said. But what we'll discover is when it's held in the right context or the right container, two notes like that can be incredibly beautiful. That a rub can be held and form one of the most beautiful chords, a major 7 chord.
And
That
just like
rub,
life,
so-
if there's something that's hard or dissonant or shocking that's happened to you in itself, it can be horrifying or horrible. But given the context, given greater purpose of the life that you've lived, you
And-
can actually find meaning in that.
And music itself, it holds so many memories. You have that song that you listened to that got you through that thing, or it sparks a memory or something. It's all the same thing. It's all awareness around tone and around your frequency. And that's what this is. But all of us have this amazing instrument within ourselves of this voice. And while my talking voice is a lot better than my singing voice, I really it's really fascinating it makes me super curious. So I invite anyone into being curious about the instrument that you were given, this God-given instrument, and to use this for embodying yourself more fully, for bringing in more joy, as you've said, and for more balance, more harmony in your life. I think it's a really wonderful thing to do. And also to follow along your journey too. The Brothers Koren have such a journey to follow. They are always including us in your next iteration of your lives, and it's super fun to follow you. So again, the website is Brothers Koren, KOREN.com, and you can find out about how to really find that voice inside of you. There's even a piece in there. It's like a free download of how to discover your life song in 5 minutes. So I find that super, I'm curious about that too. So I can't wait to
take
dive
5.
in.
You'll never know. It's amazing what we're capable of when we just say yes
5.
and just try it and look at it and feel it out later. And guys, such a pleasure to jam with you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa.
Oh my God.
We believe in the power.
Love you.
We believe in the power of request because you have shown us the power of request today, and we just want to make a request to anyone listening that if something has been sparked inside you, don't wait for someday. Find a way, hopefully with us, and if it's not us, in your community, find a way to say yes to your voice. And if you need more support, find that supportive environment where others are just waiting to feel supported by your voice. And notice how it shows up in your life. Notice. And so we dare you, we request you, say yes to your voice.
Yes, as brave as you two we're just honoring every request I made. I asked that too of those listening. Just lean in. It's only an exciting journey to come. So thank you both so much. I'm very excited to see you soon, and wonderful blessings to both of you and your families. And again, go to brotherskoren.com. And until next time, I invite you all to stay aware.